If the Dominican Republic joins CARICOM, the bloc's population almost doubles. English would only be the dominant language by a few million speakers, if so many. Let that sink in. This is Disgruntled Musings, a compilation of quick commentary on the latest socio-political news and updates from across the region. I'm your host, Shem, podcast producer here at the cpsi. Let's get into it. In this week's headlines, CXC results continue to cause concern. It's no secret that I couldn't really care less about CXC examinations given the almost sycophantic regards the region places on grade 1 counts, but even I can admit that alarms should be going off in the heads of regional leaders after the latest round of child torture. Around 200,000 students took the exams this year, and according to reports, less than 5% were able to scrape passes in 5 or more subjects. That's rough when you realize they're counting math and English in that 5. I mean, you really couldn't even nab a 5 in IT, history, Caribbean studies? It makes you wonder if we're finally seeing the echoes of lockdown reverberating through the quality of students, given the reduced effectiveness of education across the board during the pandemic. Should the CXC have adjusted its grading to account for all the new iPad doctors we'll be seeing in a decade or so? I wouldn't count on proactive response from regional governments. Heck, Barbados has been trying to abolish a single examination, the common entrance, for almost a decade now. Word of advice, folks, lock the family doctor down now. Find your Dr. Maharaj, Reed, Smith. Find them now. Can't afford that? Every time you walk into a new doctor's office, ask them if they know what skibbity toilet means. If they do, run. Snap those IVs and leg it. Next up, the Barbados MTW completes a $35 million paving program. The Barbados Ministry of Transport and Works proclaimed its recent Mill and Pave project completed, much to the confusion of the pothole currently residing directly in front of my house. These half-hearted infrastructural burps always kind of sprout up just before some major event is to be hosted on the island, and they fizzle just as quickly as the closing ceremony of said event concludes. This time, the Barbados government scrambled to repave as many roads as possible in time for the ICC T20 World Cup, co-hosted by the United States. Ironically, the funding for this slapdash effort to trick the world into thinking we give a damn came from China. More interestingly, the full amount of the loan for the Mill and Pave project, as it was called, was around $200 million. So I think I stand with the rest of my constituents in asking, where's the rest of it? We pulled something similar in 2007 for yet another ICC event. 70 brand new buses materialized out of nothing, and everyone stationary for more than 3 busy seconds found themselves buried under an inch of freshly laid bitumen. The mantra from the government back then was, "We can't take those roads back from you," to which the Barbados Water Authority replied, "Wanna bet?" The original $200 million loan was to be put towards rehabilitation of roads on the island's east coast. But any economist worth their salt knows Barbados treats loans a little differently. We borrow more to pay off other loans. In all likelihood, the majority of that $200 million is already earmarked to settle some other heinous expense. At this rate, Xi himself is going to have to fly from Beijing to Bridgetown and personally oversee any project he gives Barbados money for. We've got some more aviation news this week. Caribbean Airlines expands its own fleet. Why pay out the nose to Copa Airlines to get to Panama when you could just pay out the nose to Caribbean Airlines instead? After all, home drum beats first, or loudest, or whatever. Caribbean Airlines is getting a few new jets to tackle routes into South America, according to Trinidad's Energy Minister, Stuart Young. Currently, CAL employs a fleet of about... I'm not too sure, actually. CAL employs a fleet of Boeing 737s and a few ATRs, the buses with propellers. Those are all well and good for flights between Jamaica, Trinidad, and Barbados, and New York, for those of you who've never heard of JetBlue. But the carrier is setting its sights on more versatile route lineups. CAL's been mulling the purchase of a few small Embraer jets to vacuum up Liat's old stomping grounds, much to the annoyance of Führer Gaston Brown. But this new South America push could bring in some much-needed access for further links to our Latin American neighbors. Or it could crash and burn spectacularly because there is a reason why very few services to the continent ever seem to survive for very long. Remember Gaull's flights from Barbados to Fortaleza in Rio, Brazil? Yeah, me neither. The only carrier who's really seen any sort of success is Copa, and God knows it's not their 3-star service that keeps us coming. Copa uses a connecting program, a layover program as you call it, to keep costs low. This means that all the flights to the Caribbean from any other destination, to or from any other destination, via Copa Airlines will stop in Panama. This brings in revenue and tourism to the Central American country, and it's effective in that It's so effective, in fact, that it's often cheaper to fly to Florida via Panama on Copa than it is to fly directly there with American Airlines. How's Cal going to keep its prices low? I don't really know. I don't know anyone dying to lay over in Port of Spain to reach Bogota either. Staying in the aviation sphere, Dominica announces that its international airport is on track. The self-proclaimed nature isle is undertaking several large development projects, key of which is the island's new international airport. Did you know that Dominica didn't have an international airport? Yeah, it's got an airport, a shack with a runway called Douglas Charles, but that airport can't handle any wide-body planes or anything bigger than a regional jet. For those of you who can't visualize what I'm talking about, think of Ryanair or JetBlue or Southwest. That airport can't handle planes that come to mind when you think of those three. That's why small airlines like Inter and Air Antilles and Liat are instrumental in Dominica's connectivity to the greater region and the world. Well, looks like they're keen to change that. Using money from their Citizenship by Investment or CBI program, ground's been broken, cleared, and is currently being prepared for a 2,800-foot runway and a corresponding terminal. What is a Citizenship by Investment program, you ask? It's a fancy way of saying you can buy a Dominican passport for a hefty sum of money and the government will use that money to do things like build roads, etc. Around a quarter of Dominica's yearly revenue is generated by this program. A risky enterprise, sure, but at present it could facilitate much more robust tourism if the airport proves to be successful. The promo by the Montreal contractor, the Canadian contractor building this airport, imagines better connectivity to North America, Europe, and laughably Asia. Asia. I don't know if that was thrown in there just to tickle the fancy of future CBI customers, but I can't give you a single CARICOM state with any kind of feasible air link to Asia, not even Middle Eastern Asia. But go ahead, dream big, Dominica. Also, someone should probably tell Caribbean Airlines they might not need to buy those regional jets if this new airport is a thing. Okay, time for the speed round. We've got 2 more articles. Jamaica's Minister of Finance is drafted by the IMF. Dr. Nigel Clark is to be the next Deputy Managing Director at the Global Institution. But, it looks like one of our boys finally made it to the big leagues. Funny how the IMF has no problem hiring Caribbean folk, but local governments balk at the idea of hiring competent foreigners to any high level of the government itself. Prime Ministers Holness of Jamaica and Motley of Barbados lauded the minister on his achievement, but given the high level of necessary expertise that Mr. Clark represents, they should actually both be mourning the loss of one of the most skilled members of the island's cabinet. And finally, Antigua joins the CAF. The Development Bank of Latin America and the Caribbean just approved Antigua and Barbuda as a shareholder. Caribbean islands love loans. Banks give loans. This one's pretty self-explanatory. Once again, it's time for this week's Long Talk, titled Fake Pride in Fake Money. Today's Long Talk is aimed predominantly at my Caribbean listeners. Take my hand. With the other hand, reach into your pockets, your wallets, and those Danish cookie tins, and pull out some cash. If Benjamin, Lincoln, Jackson, Hamilton, or heck, even Grant aren't staring back at you, it's fake money. No, not counterfeit fake, but it ain't worth a damn. If Nanny of the Maroons is there, it's fake. If Errol Barrow is condescendingly glaring back, it's fake. If for some bizarro reason Elizabeth II is smiling at you from your money right now while you're sitting on your porch in Grenada, I'm sorry to say it, that money's fake. What I'm getting at here is that all the different currencies we use in the region that aren't green with "In God We Trust" emblazoned and a dead US president on them, they're all useless. Yes, I know we get paid in them, and they're the only thing on hand that you can find around, but that is by design, and not a design that is to your benefit. Let's cut to the chase. Those currencies shouldn't exist. In fact, to the vast majority of the planet, they truly don't. Hell, to my Trinidadian neighbors, there's no such thing as a Barbados dollar, and vice versa. We can't use each other's money. So much for the CARICOM thing, right? But do you know what we all agree does exist? The US dollar. Virtually all Caribbean trade, internationally and even regionally amongst our sister states, is done in cold, hard USD. If I hit the jackpot in the lottery right now and decide to send all 3 of you listening a share, here's how that's going to go down. I'm going to go to the bank. I'm going to enter your information, and if you're not in Barbados, my bank will take my local monopoly money, send the USD equivalent to your bank, which will then laugh at you as it's putting the local equivalent into your hands in your weak-ass currency. So you may be asking, Shem, why do these currencies exist? What, you didn't ask that? Too bad, I'm going to tell you anyway. It's really all about control by your government, by our governments. The governments of Trinidad, Jamaica, Antigua, and so on, they need the USD, and badly. A long time ago, before even TikTok, they all decided to break away from much stronger economies. We won't go over the final details of that particular separation, but in order to ensure that they couldn't be controlled themselves by any foreign power, they moved to make their own money and take the reins on their own monetary policy. A noble cause, right? Wrong. That BS only works if your economy is worth more than 3 beach shells. And last I checked, collectively, the Caribbean is only worth about 4. When globalization happened, reality should have really set in. No one outside of Barbados wants Barbados dollars. They are useless. But again, it's really about control. You see, the Barbados dollar allows the government to control fiscal policy. Taxes, exchange rate within the country, prices on goods, all that stuff. But they're really bad at it. So they embark on projects and terrible fiscal expenditures that require foreign resources to realize. The only way to buy those foreign resources is to use USD. Most of the time, our governments use foreign loans to make these purchases, which are also in USD and can only be repaid in USD. So they need to keep a stash of it on hand at all times, and they can't have you, a peasant, chipping away at that stash. So our governments sit there like Smog the dragon on this mountain of proverbial gold, which enables them to do stupid things and make bad decisions in order to maintain this pile. To maintain the pile, by the way, they enact foreign exchange controls, making their problem effectively your problem as well. The local currencies were never created for your benefit. They were created so that your government could continue to spend irresponsibly with very little oversight. What followed the creation of these currencies was what I consider to be one of our region's greatest propaganda campaigns. You see, the Caribbean governments have convinced us, the average citizens, that this is our currency now. This is your money. We are told that it is a symbol of national pride when they have effectively barred you from using the currency that the rest of the planet uses and accepts, so that they can spend that USD freely. To bolster the illusion, they've placed all manner of other national symbols on these notes. Your heroes, your monuments, flora, fauna, and mottos. And now you cling to these useless bills and don't even question the nonsensical nature of their existence. Whenever you leave this region, you must convert that money to currency used by the developing world, be it USD, British pounds, or euros. The ultimate sign of cognitive dissonance is how proudly we look upon the exchange rates of these currencies. 1 USD is 2 BBD, 7 TTD, or far too many JMD. We value USD more than our own currencies, not because of some US propaganda, but because the USD actually has value. So why do we persist in using these shadow currencies instead of the real deal? Why aren't we asking our governments to drop the charade and give us access to the currency that matters, that powers the global market? Making the switch wouldn't be that hard. Panama, Ecuador, and other Latin American states have done it already. Argentina dreams of doing it when they stabilize. Barbados could complete the transition in just 2 days. Simply divide all the bank deposits by 2 and tell the citizens to bring their fake money in for some sweet USD. Remember, as explained earlier, the US government wouldn't gain any more control than it already has over our economies. We already trade exclusively in USD with everyone else, but it's not a change for the sake of change. Switching to the US dollar, or dollarizing, would provide real and tangible benefits. You wouldn't have to worry about expensive exchanges at foreign ATMs or airports. You could shop on Amazon with much less ambiguity. But even more importantly, your government couldn't manipulate the value of the dollar by just printing a shitload of it when they want more BMWs for their friends. And they can't pay public servants with money worth less than toilet paper after the resulting inflation implodes its value. Dollarization for tiny economies just makes more sense. I'm going to let go of your hand now. I did this because I care. Because I want you to access global commerce with no blocks to real money. Because I get paid by the cpsi in USD, but then my bank converts it to shitty Barbados dollars, and I want USD too. It's time that we demand better. Now put the fake money back into your wallet. This has been Disgruntled Musings, a proudly produced CPSI podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, check out our other podcasts and published works at cpsi.media.